Hi, my name is Grant Patterson. I'm the author of a number of books which you can find on Amazon, including the Will Bryant thrillers, and that's what I'm going to start talking about today. Here we are in pandemic 2020. At least there's no noise to interfere with my talking. We are on an airport flight path, but you'd never know it. It's really strange. So, making a virtue out of necessity, I've been writing a bit, but spending more time trying to promote my books and get them out there. So in that vein, I'm going to be talking a little bit about each one of my books and the genesis behind it and how the process went. So the first one we're going to talk about is Southern Cross. That is the first book in the Will Bryant thrillers. And Will Bryant is a Canadian who lives in Sao Paulo, Brazil, when we first meet him. And he gets involved in the crime world of Brazil, and through his friend Edelson, who is another ongoing character in the series. He's a Brazilian policeman, and together they get involved in a shadowy police organization called the Grupo. So in the first book, Will is out of work, basically, living in exile in Brazil. He was a border services officer, but he lost his job after a questionable shooting. So he's down there teaching English, kind of living hand to mouth, when he gets a private investigator job from his wife's lawyer. And this PI job leads him to investigate a man named Oscar Stumpf, who is a character that's drawn out of Brazil's recent history. Stumpf was an officer in military intelligence during the military junta of the 1970s, and as such, he has a lot of things to cover up. For those of you familiar with the history of South America during the 1960s, 70s, and early 80s, it depended on where you went, but in some places it was really bad in terms of human rights abuses. Brazil was sort of in the middle. Not a great many people were killed, but people still did disappear, and the character of Oscar Stumpf is representative of that era. We also talk a lot about the gang culture in Brazil. The Primeiro Comando do Capital, the first command of Sao Paulo, is Brazil's most powerful gang, and it's featured prominently in the novel as well, as is the situation on the border between Brazil and Paraguay. Essentially, it's wide open, it's quite lawless, and that's where the guns and the drugs come in. So all of those things come together in this first novel of mine that I published, and it set the stage for 3 subsequent books that I've published, which I'll be talking about later. The genesis of it, the original idea, came to me when I was in South Brazil, where my wife has family, and I was looking out the window at these really dark farmers' fields and wondering, how about if I started a book there, a man running for his life? And then that was just kind of where it took me. They say write what you know, and the Will Bryant thrillers are sort of me following that advice. That's how I started, and my first 2 books that I wrote were Will Bryant books. And that's because Will is a synthesis of some elements of my life. He was a CBSA officer, Canada Border Services Agency, which I was for 17 years. And he's also got family ties to Brazil, which I do. My wife is Brazilian. Both of my kids were born there, and I've also lived in Brazil. So I stayed kind of close to what I knew for my first few books. So I hope you enjoy Southern Cross. It's available on Amazon and in a number of other retail outlets, both online and when brick and mortar bookstores finally do open again, there as well, and libraries if you really don't want to pay for it. But please, I hope you do support us, a author trying to become known. And in my next video, I'll talk about the sequel to Southern Cross, Back in Slowly. Thanks for your time.